All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Competence Podcast. We're talking college football. It is our preseason top 25. We are going through top 25 teams. We're in the 15 to 20 range. Fresh and I have been on vacation for a little bit, relaxing during the summer here before the season kicks off. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who is the best scalper this side of the Mississippi. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Out's doing great. Like you said, we're on vacation. I just got back from scalloping in the Gulf. It's a lot of fun, and scallops taste even better. So, but I'm refreshed and ready for football season. And we're currently right now recording, I think, July 15th. So media days for SEC next week, ACC this week. A couple weeks after that, the Big Ten. So we're going to get the ball rolling here real soon. And before we know it, we'll be playing some real football in Billings.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like we're on vacation. We haven't really talked about this, and then like the whole Brendan Sorsby controversy. There's all sorts of fun stuff that's coming out with the 5 for 5 rule, and we're sitting there, going, we'll just relax and enjoy this places we're in right now.
Well, you went to some cool spots on your vacation, didn't you?
I did. If you checked out our Twitter profile, I posted 2 videos from there. I was on campus at Notre Dame, got to see Touchdown Jesus. That's pretty impressive. First time I've ever on Notre Dame's campus, and I got
pretty campus.
Yeah, and I got to do a behind the scenes tour at Ohio State, and that was really awesome.
So was an unofficial or official visit to Notre Dame? Like, how did that go? Did you get treated? Did you there's a full on, pamper and pop and stance mentality?
It's definitely an unofficial visit because how late we were. We were originally supposed to be in South Bend at around 7:30. We didn't get there till like 9:45. But the weird thing is where South Bend is positioned in Indiana, like it's almost 10 o'clock and it's not even fully dark outside. Like it's the wildest thing. Like you're walking around like the little courtyard area, and it was beautiful. I love South Bend. Ohio State was pretty awesome to be on the field and be in the band room and see a bunch of other stuff. So make sure you guys go back to our social media page and check out some of the stuff we put for there. But Fresh, let's dive into the top 25. Our composite just to remind everyone, our composite that was in 25 through 21, we had UVA at 25, Louisville at 24, Arizona is 23, Iowa 22, Tennessee at 21. Fresh, I'll throw it over to you. Your 20th team in the country going into the season. Who you got?
Coming in 2026, my number 20 preseason team are the SMU Mustangs. This team has, 2 years ago, they were the darlings. They rolled through the ACC, got in the title game, maybe Clemson beat them, and then they got absolutely steamrolled by Penn State in the playoff. They kind of had a step back last year, but the money, the NIL perspective, you've seen the past 2 years of sustained success. They were pretty good last year, but they were much better the year before. Talent coming back, the expectation, the growth mentality. I really like where they're at. You look at Kevin Jennings, the quarterback. Sky's the limit in his skill set. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball. Really, the straw that stirs the drink. The running back room is pretty healthy, but you look at Chris Johnson Jr., his time this year. So last year, 67 carries, 479 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Transferred in from Miami. He's going to be the lead dog this year. So how can he really adapt and build this offense around him? And then you look at the defense. They allowed 20 points a game last year, which is 3rd in the ACC. They recorded 34 sacks, but they gave up 395 yards a game, which is 11th in the ACC. So they were stopping people from scoring, but they were giving up a bunch of yards. It was that bend up, don't break, led by Ahmad Moses, who is returning at safety. He was the 5th leading tackle on the ACC, also had 5 picks. How can he elevate his game and lead his defense to improve? If they can improve, maybe get down to like 18 points a game, start allowing maybe 375 a game, just right there alone is going to help you maybe win one of those ball games. Because last year they had 4 losses by single digits, 48 to 45, double overtime to Baylor, 35 to 24 at TCU, 13-12 at Wake Forest, which is a big clunker, and then 38-35 at Cal. You were 3-3 on the road. You have 4 losses by single digits. How can they, the year before they won those games. Last year they didn't. How do they flip the script that going back this year? The team is pretty well rounded. They did have 17 transfers coming in, highlighted by, I think it's going to be a big, difference maker in the number 2 JUCO defensive end, David Chukwuemeka. If he can come in there and be explosive, take that 34 sacks they had last year as a team and elevate that up and be the leader, they're going to be able to make a difference. The schedule actually is pretty balanced. It's not, too intimidating. No back-to-back tough games. I use the air quotes, but all of their real true opponents that they have to face, that are, I'm going to use air quotes again, tough, are on the road. The reason why I'm going to put Florida State there is because the opener on Labor Day. It's the opener. Every team is 0-0. It's your first time out to the tunnel. Florida State is going to be an intimidating environment, especially on that Labor Day night. Last year they beat Alabama, as we all know. What Florida State team is going to show up? SMU cannot be caught sleeping in the opener. You do have to go to Louisville. You have to go to Notre Dame. Those are going to be real big two tests for the overall moxie of this football team. Their one home game they do get is Virginia. So if they can handle business and go 2-2 and split those 4 big games, you're probably sitting at 10-2. You're maybe even playing for an ACC title. You're locking yourself in the playoff spot. But this team has to be focused. They have to build off of what they learned last year. They jumped on the scene 2 years ago. They took some life lessons last year, if you will. How can they look at themselves during the offseason and grow and build off of it? And Kevin Jennings taking that next step offensively. They're real stretch for this team in the last 5 games. It's going to be great how you start, whatever. But can the team actually finish? You're going to Syracuse on Halloween. You have Virginia Tech, which is going to be an improved football team. You have Wake Forest. Then you're at Notre Dame and at Stanford. Can this team just be able to get through and finish down the stretch and set up for the playoff? But I really think this is a very good football team there in the Dallas Metroplex area. SMU might be stiff in a playoff spot, for the second time in 3 years. If they can just keep their head straight and just play through.
Yeah, Fresh. In a minute, I'll get into the Pony Express here coming up. They're 20 for me. My 20th team, you had them a little bit lower. I have the Tennessee Volunteers here. And you went pretty into detail with Tennessee. And I started looking at Tennessee's schedule this year. I hate to say this because I really like Josh Heupel. I've always liked Josh Heupel for a very long time. Liked him at UCF, liked him as an OC at Missouri, like him as the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. I pull for Tennessee solely as Josh Heupel as the coach. If they got rid of Josh Heupel, I probably wouldn't pull for Tennessee anymore in that regards. Just the person I'm rooting for. I'm sitting here thinking about Tennessee and going, they got all these players. George McIntyre, highly touted redshirt freshman, coming in, probably going to start. Deshaun Bishop, great running back there. They have offensive skill set players. But here's the thing. Tennessee, it is playoff, and Josh Heupel almost. I feel like I'm sitting here talking directly to Josh Heupel. I hate to say this, it's playoffs or bust. It is playoffs or bust for the Tennessee Volunteers. I will say this, if you wound up sneaking your way into the SEC title game at, 8-4, and you wound up missing the playoffs as the number 13 team or the 14th team because there's been some sort of crazy shenanigans that have happened. All right, I'll hear that out. But for me, it's playoffs or bust for Josh Heupel from here on out. And if he doesn't, because I think that's a ridiculously high expectation for Tennessee to have, if you don't do that, I think Tennessee's moving on. I really feel bad about saying this too. I think that it goes back to Marty Schottenheimer with the Cleveland Browns back in the 80s. Marty Schottenheimer got you to the playoffs, won you quite a few games, but never could get over the hump in the playoffs. Spent 8 years with the Browns, 7 years with the Browns before they fired him and with Bill Belichick instead. And I'm looking at this and I get the same kind of vibes for Tennessee. I look at this and say, you got to win these games at this point. You get Texas at Neyland. You get Alabama at Neyland. You get LSU at Neyland. And the only real tough game is you got to go into Kyle Field to play Texas A&M. You even get Auburn, who will be probably a better team at Neyland. Okay, you play Georgia Tech in Atlanta. All right, William Bryce Stadium for the Gamecocks there. I'm looking at this schedule saying, you got to put your big boy pants on, Tennessee. Win these big games. You can't bow to it. If you do, at the end of the season, Fresh, I feel really bad because this reminds me of James Franklin last year. Although we were way higher on Penn State at the beginning of the year, what they were bringing back, high expectations. I legitimately think that Tennessee is a possible Fraudville resident. I can see his team going 8-4. I can see his team going 11-1.
Well, you got most of my comments in the last episode because I have them in that 21 to 25 range. If you don't want to know exactly what number, check it out. It's on Spinnable Sports YouTube channel. I can see the Heupel thing because look, we are in an arms race, and all the investment that the Tennessee athletic department and boosters have put into Heupel and given him all the tools the past few years. They've been good, but they've never gone to great. And there's that book out there, Good to Great. They have never gone to great. The 1 year they got into the playoff, like we said, Ohio State's still scoring, and it is July of 2026, and that game happened in December of 2024. They can't get past the Georgia Demon that's beating them every single time. And they've been able to beat Alabama a couple times, which is a rarity. They just, under Heupel, they're never consistent. But the biggest teller was you go to South Carolina and you get the doors beat off. It's just they never show up consistently. There's a lot of bark, but there's never a bite. The Heupel's got to get done because sometimes being a good guy, and it sucks because I think he does truly care for his players, and he's seems to be a good person in reality. But good guys only get you so far when it comes to coaching at its highest level. You have to deliver results. I'll use there's a whole boatload of coaches. You're kind of like, that's a great guy. He's a good dude. He talks. He's very respectful. Has a great family. Blah blah blah. But I mean, 6-6 doesn't cut it when the checks have extra zeros. So he might be, but hell, he might get fired and get a lot of extra zeros just because he got fired. But you got to deliver, and you eventually that window gets smaller and smaller, and expectations get higher.
All right, Fresh, your number 19 team. Who you got?
Number 19, Iowa Hawkeyes. Rinse, repeat. Have you ever seen the teacher who walks in every single day wearing the khakis with the different shirt, or the meme on Twitter, Facebook, where the old grandpa is holding the same shirt that he's wearing for Christmas? It's exactly what Iowa Hawkeyes. It's what you should be. You're gonna have a bunch of dudes. You're gonna have probably 2 or 3 defensive backs that you're like, guy's a freak athlete. He just shows up. How did he get through the recruiting services? But he gets developed there, and by Kirk Ferentz and the entire staff, and becomes an NFL draft pick. It's a recruit developed system, but at some point they have to start delivering that big win. We haven't seen that big win from Iowa in a long time. It's the consistency. They have a very good line of scrimmage. Offensive and defensive line are always there. They have guys in the defensive backfield that can make plays. They develop tight ends like they produce corn in Iowa at a very high rate and very successful rate. They are, they do the nitty gritty stuff, but they don't have the flash. And they'll play you, they'll bust up your nose. They'll give you a fight. But do they have that playmaker, to go in the Wayback Machine? Do they have that Tim Dwight guy who's just going to be the explosive playmaker for you, show up offensively? But if Iowa was themselves, they're automatically good for 8 wins every single year. And you can just punch that one and take it to the bank. This year is going to be really a big factor of who is the quarterback. We went through a lot of years of just random guys taking over, and then you had a couple cast-offs the past couple years. It never truly came to fruition of the offense taking that next step. So this year, who is the quarterback, and how do they build that offense around it? Is it Jeremy Hekwinski, who was 2 for 2 for 8 yards last year as a freshman? Was it Hank Brown, the 2-year Auburn player who transferred in? He was a 45 for 73 for 642 yards and 7 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in his career, which are kind of like numbers. Which one of those guys takes the reign and actually runs the offense the way it should be run and does it effectively within the overall scheme? The line of scrimmage. Last year, that offensive line was fantastic, like they always usually are. They lost 3 starters. The defensive line lost a lot from last year's squad. How does that useful depth? This is that one year where there's talent, but how quickly does that talent flip it over on game day? You see the raw talent. You see you have the coaching, pedigree to pass, but how quickly is that talent who hasn't had much game experience flip the switch and get it going? On paper, they look really good. Game day is a different story. Incoming, you kind of look what the offense is trying to do. Tim Lester, it's the 2nd straight year. The offensive defensive coordinators are both coming back. How does Tim Lester take that offense? You can't just be 3 yards on the cloud of dust, 12 and 13 formations, especially with the schedule they have. You're going to have to put 3 and 4 receivers on the field every once in a while and be able to throw the football at some point and help become a little bit more 2-dimensional. Doing my prep and looking through this team and really looking at the talent, I'm going to hit home a little bit. All right, I was raised in Vero Beach, Florida, and Seth and I are recording this out of Jacksonville, Florida. So there are 2 incoming freshman players that I'm actually going to be cheering for in Iowa. 4-star receiver recruit Xavier Stinson comes from Vero Beach High School. They played for state title last year. 3-star from Fletcher High School, the Beach Rats. DeAndre Smith, 2 receivers coming in from the state of Florida in this group. They're bringing in 5 total receivers, transfers, and freshman recruit. They're making a concerted effort to get some playmakers on the outside and evolve this offense. It puts a lot of unknowns. You're going to have guys who may have been sitting on the bench for a while, possibly getting a lot of minutes and a lot of playing time, a lot of snaps, because they're trying to evolve and trying to juice this offense with some athleticism. So we'll see how Xavier Stinson and DeAndre Smith do from the local guys. But 5 total receivers coming in this overall class means they're making an effort to get some athletes on the field on the perimeter. The schedule, we're going to know who this Iowa team is very early in the season. We're going to know by October 10th. I'm going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, flying back that day. So we'll know by the time I get back in Jacksonville, Florida from Albuquerque, New Mexico, who the Iowa Hawkeyes are. It's September 26th. They go to the Big House. October 3rd, They host Ohio State on October 9th on a Friday night. They're playing the Washington Huskies up in Seattle. If they win two of those 3 games, this team is probably playing for a Big Ten title. If they're 0-3, hey, you know what? Go try to be 8-4, get yourself to a decent bowl game, and just roll out and prepare for next year. But we're going to know who the Hawkeyes are by October 10th. The team is talented. The coaching is very disciplined. They bring it left and right. I'm intrigued to see some of the young guys who are untested, how they escalate and how they take their game to the next level. There's tons of talent there. There's always is. Can they be physical at the last scrimmage? Are they 8-win team? No doubt about it. Are they a 9-win team? That's the biggest question in pushing them higher up. But I think they have the talent to be a 9 or 10-win team if they can get lucky somewhere along the way.
See, I think I had Iowa a little bit lower. And the reason is primarily the quarterback and the huge question mark that is there. But Fresh, you're a fan of Georgia. I'm a fan of Ohio State. We enjoy watching other teams. I'm thinking, though, if you aren't like an Alabama fan, a Notre Dame fan, some of those blue blood programs that you cheer for, if I'm a fan of, I don't know, let's say Michigan State or Virginia Tech or even like Wake Forest or Nebraska, you would kill for Iowa's football program. Because here's the thing, I was never going to go 6-6. Kirk Ferentz is too good of a head coach to let them go 6-6. They may go 8-4. You're right. They could be an 8-4 team every single year. They're going to put another offensive lineman. It looks like a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He's going to be an offensive lineman. In April, he will be drafted to the league again. The weird thing, though, I wonder at times if I'm a Michigan State fan, and I'm just looking there over at Iowa, be like, do you kind of why can't I have that? Why can't I have the same head coach for 27 years? He's the longest tenured head coach right now in college football. I'm going to win more games than I lose. I'm always going to go a good bowl game. I'll occasionally compete for a Big Ten title. They've never made the playoff. There's going to be a year because as we expand this playoff year, they're going to get in. But I think that Iowa is like the marquee program that if you're not a blue blood program, that's who you should be striving to be.
It's consistent.
Yes.
It's not sexy, but it's consistent. And I also, you know what? I'm going to give Kirk Ferentz a lot of credit because in this day and age of we got to bring in this 5 receiver formation, we got to run up pace offense, no huddle, really push the pace and that sort of thing. He's like, dude, I'm just going to put a 12 personnel. Maybe put 3 receivers in the field, but we're still going to be a run first, run second. We'll throw. Now, at some point, you have to adapt. You're just forced to, in reality. The team, if they're down by 10 points, are they able to keep up? And in this day and age, with the way the offenses are, it puts them in a hole. You have to be able to adapt a little bit and have an offense that can strike back if you're down, because there have been many years where once you were down 10-0 or 14-0 in Iowa, the game was over. And it just became, it was more of a, the time just had to run off, but you knew the game was over at 14 or 10-0, or a 10-point lead. If Iowa could ever put themselves in the spot to respond, they can take that next step on the national stage and really be a bigger contender. Because look, Indiana did it. They went from being a an average football team to the worst college football team of all time to being a national champion in 2 years under Kurt Signetti. Mm-hmm. They made a decision to do it. They got the support and they had the money back, and obviously that really helps. But they flipped the script quickly, and they said, you know what, we're going to just go out there, we're going to attack. And if Iowa took that mentality, or at least was able to adapt and add an extra wrinkle to the offense, it would make them a little more viable, consistent threat to really compete on a national level.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, my number 19 team is the SMU. It's the SMU Mustangs, the Pony Express. In the last few years, have become a SMU apologist. I guess I have been a very big fan. I was a huge proponent for them to get in the playoff 2 years ago, and rightfully so there. I am ready for Rhett Lashley and Kevin Jennings' swan song. This is the final chapter, this is the final dance here. Kevin Jennings, most likely you will be a camp squad quarterback. There's a good chance this guy is never going to be in the NFL. If you have never watched an SMU game this year, you guys need to make sure you watch Kevin Jennings play the game. He is a phenomenal college quarterback. Is his skill set translate very well to the pros? Will remain to be seen. Maybe scouts like him, maybe they don't. But I'll tell you, He's going to be fun to watch. And SMU, I think this year is going to be very, very fun to watch. You went in and talked a little bit about this schedule here, Fresh. It's got to be SMU on the road. Last year, you were talking about how they lost single game losses. People forget the last week of the season, they lose to Cal with a chance to go play for the ACC title game again and another repeat shot at the college football playoff, and they blew it. They blew it. And I think that's going to be those moments. Like, we look at teams in this outside, and I've talked to a couple of people on Twitter, on social media, and they say, one of the questions I get asked quite a bit is, what are teams that are not traditional? You know, we saw SMU, we saw Arizona State make the playoff, and we've seen Boise State make the playoff. We've seen like this Indiana thing. What are some of those things for teams that are kind of outside the top 10, 15? What are some of the things that they need? And one of those moments I say is something that galvanizes the team together. 2 years ago, you take a look at Ryan Day loses to the team up north. People are calling for his head. He has a moment to galvanize the team. They go on a run through the playoffs there. Indiana, people doubted them. They get beat pretty badly in South Bend, Indiana the year before. They make a run through the playoff there. You need moments to galvanize you. I think SMU had one last year, and I think so many people are going to forget about this. If I was Rhett Lashley, I would have posted that Cal score up on everywhere in their facilities. I would have said, Cal cost you blank. And I would list everything that it cost every player on this team. Because you look at how many kids are coming back to this team here, I think that could be a huge motivator. Now, you have to win one of these games. You got to go into either Tallahassee and win, you got to go to Louisville and win, or you got to go into South Bend and win. You have to win one of those 3 games. If you don't win one of those 3 games, then guess what? You're going to be an 8-4 team. You're going to be at the Holiday Bowl again, or the Texas Bowl, or the Menke Car Care Auto Oil Change Bowl. It's going to be a coulda, woulda, shoulda type thing with SMU. But man, they're a fascinating story. You know, where they've come, the program coming back from the only school that's ever received the death penalty. I give them a lot of credit. And their alumni has poured money into that program. People also don't remember they get $0 from the ACC media right deal. I think that's still the case. I think this last year of that maybe. But man, I'm excited for SMU just to see what happens to them.
Well, you know, I like that you said Swan Song. I should have sold that from you when I started off. But this is, you got to go for it. You got to go for all of it. You have nothing to worry about next year. Lastly, you had a lot of people. You were on a Lefto's list for a job, and you decided to stay at SMU. You made the commitment. Now, maybe that was strategic because you're like, I have a lot of resources here. I have some talent. It's the ACC. It's a winnable league. If I give them some good graces, maybe I build myself a little extra support in case it takes a little bit longer. You need to deliver, though, because that money they're putting down, money talks. So, Rhett, go out there. If you think you need to go for it and be a little more aggressive, do it. And hey, it's World Cup time. We saw England up 1-0. They were not aggressive and they lost late. You got to go for it. You cannot rest on your laurels and sit back. And this is common to any coach out there. As we saw today, I know soccer and football are 2 different things, but the mentality is the same. Attack, attack, attack. Be aggressive. Go get it done. Don't sit back because you can play the what-if game all you want. But SMU has tons of talent. They have the resources. They're in a league that's winnable. It's your chance and it's waiting for you.
SMU, my apologies, Fresh. SMU still, it's the first 9 years in the ACC. They get 0 television money, but
that's another 6.5
6 more years. Yep.
And say 7 because we just started July 1st of the new fiscal year. So 7 years.
And SMU's boosters right now committed over $200 million to offset those costs.
Not bad.
Nice to have Texas oil money. All right. Fresh, you got number 18. Who you got?
My 18th team in the nation in the preseason top 25 are the Washington Huskies.
I like this pick.
Because, you know, we've seen the coaching staff had success at Arizona and it transferred up to Washington and it had the past 2 years been up there developing. And they've always been a very good football program up there, a very proud football program in Washington. Purple Rain for a reason. That Husky team, that Husky program, they get talent. And you wouldn't think it. Like, they're up in Seattle. There's not much football up there. They get the blue collar guys. out of Washington and Idaho and Oregon, and they just go down there into California, especially Southern California, and pick up the talent. And this team has a lot of talent. It's going to be tough to replace Boston and Jonah Coleman, those two big playmakers in the offense. Number one person I'm looking at is Oregon running back transfer Jaden Lamar. He's going to step in there and really give them a spark in the backfield. Desmond Williams Jr., though, there's been a lot of hype around him. We had a lot of hype last year coming at quarterback. He showed flashes 2 years ago late in the year. This has got to be his year to be elite. You've got to step up, and you've got to put on your shoulders. This is your third year in the system. You've got to find a way to make it all happen and be consistent the entire year. You have 4 returning starters on your offensive line. That should also prove helpful. This is a chance for you to be protected, find receivers, build off play action. The offensive game plan should be very, very efficient. It should not be a clunky start. It should be very right off the bat, get going. I am excited they have the Apple Cup as the first game of the year. It means your attention is locked in. You don't get the sleepy start of the season. You've got to be ready to go because Washington State, they saw Washington leave and kill the Pac-12. They're going to be mad. The Apple Cup is back. It means something to people up there. You have got to be locked in and ready to go. So having their attention for week 1 is going to be interesting. The defense, though, that is where there are some questions. Defensive line lost a lot last year. The group of this year has got to grow up really, really quick. There are 2 players I'm keeping my eye on. The transfer portal that came in. Defensive end, Ohio State transfer Logan George, and the defensive tackle from Mississippi State, Kai McClendon. McClendon's 6'2" and 315 at his tackle spot. Can he hold up in the trenches of the Big Ten? We're going to find out. And how can Logan George take that talent? He got recruited to Ohio State for a reason. And that depth chart is extremely lengthy at Ohio State. So how can he take his talents that he was there for a reason and come to Washington and be the impact player right off the bat? The 2 of those guys can step up and take their play to the next level. The rest of the younger players in that depth chart will be able to at least play a little more free and help the defense get going. Now, Washington, if you look back through the annals of time, they always somehow are developing corners and safeties. They can get the secondary pretty well. It's that front 7 that always sometimes are hit or miss. If those 2 guys can do their job, I have a feeling the talent in the secondary will be okay. The schedule is not doing them any favors. September and October, your only 2 real threats outside the Apple Cup, your only 2 real threats are at USC and then hosting Iowa. So if you get off in that first 8 games, you're 7-1. You're in a great spot, and you better be 7-1 because Penn State November 7th, November 14th at Michigan State, Indiana they host on the 21st of November, and then at Oregon November 28th. This Penn State team is not. It's going to we're gonna know who Penn State is by November 7th, and knowing that, and Matt Campbell entire basically host of Iowa State, Cyclones coming over who've had battle trench experience. They're going to be a team that's ready to play some football. It's not going to be a walkover. Michigan State's going to be a little better. Indiana's going to be the reigning national, champion, and Oregon is going to definitely be a heavy favorite to win a national championship. So you've got to be 7-1 because that November stretch is going to be who you remember by. If you're 8-0 and you finish 10-2, or you're 7-1 and you finish, 8-4, people are going to look at November. They're not going to care what you do the first 2 months. So you better be 7-1 or 8-0 entering November. It comes through the Halloween weekend because after that, it's going to be a prime. But we'll know on this Husky team, there's tons of talent that can they put it all together and be consistent. Because last year and the year before and the year before that, there's always the gap up in talent. Now, there's one team that historically they've always been able to beat. Now, it's Kalen DeBoer was always able to beat Dan Lanning. And Washington's always beat Oregon this season. This is not the same. Oregon's kind of taking it back to the past couple of years. How can you get through and play through your full 12-game schedule and be able to take care of business? They tripped up late last year and they play through this year. We'll see. But there's tons of talent there up in Seattle.
I got Washington coming up here fresh, but I really am curious on how Jedd Fisch responds to this upcoming year. I really am curious about that. But I'll get into Washington here in a second because they're not my number 8 team, my number 18 team. And this could either be, this is one of the extreme cases in college football. It's the Houston Cougars. I'm saying that right. I never thought I'd be saying that the Houston Cougars are an extreme
Willie
case
Fritz.
in college football. Willie Fritz, what he has done in Houston has been nothing short of remarkable. Mekhi Hughes is transferring in over there. Very, very strong running back. Had a great season at Tulane a couple years ago. Injuries at Oregon kind of bit him up. He goes to Houston, kind of one last run for how this is going to be. The key thing that we are going to be keeping our eye on, and you talked a little bit about your preview about Houston, Keshawn Henderson versus Connor Wegman. Now, Connor Wegman, former, I believe was a 5-star prospect there, was highly touted as a quarterback, never lived up to expectations. And we'll see what Wegman does for Houston start the year. Don't be shocked to see Keshawn Henderson early on playing for Houston. But again, like I said, this could be the opportunities of extreme. Either Houston is basically on city council of Fraudville because we have the expectations very high for them. And in order for them to get to Fraudville, you got to have expectations and you just poop the bed. Maybe they'll be cleaning up the downtown, scraping horse manure over the place. Or this is a playoff team. Because I'm sitting there looking at Houston's schedule now. After Texas Tech is good, but Friday night in Lubbock now doesn't scare me the way it once did now that they don't have Sorsby. In Manhattan against Kansas State in the middle of October, Oklahoma State at Utah. All of those are games that you have to take very seriously. But if we're betting this, if we're looking at what Vegas would probably say, outside of that game at Texas Tech, I got Houston as the favorite in all three of the other games I just rattled off. Now, they might not be a huge favorite. It might be a 3-point favorite, but Houston's going to be a favorite. If you get past Texas Tech in week 3, all of a sudden the season opens up. And then you get to your bye week and you have one loss. Let's say you lose in Manhattan to Kansas State. And it's the month of November and you're staring at Cincinnati, Colorado, West Virginia, and Baylor. And that's what's in front of you to get into the playoff. Big 12 title game probably as well. I really like Houston's chances to be a playoff team. There are questions definitely out there. How's Mekhi Hughes respond to being an injury? Can Amari Thomas play like he did last year? Can this offensive line protect the quarterback? Can you open up running the running game when it matters the most? Are you going to be able to pick up that 3rd and 4? Is Willie Fritz going to be able to not kind of pee down his leg when the stakes are really, really high? I can see all of those. I can see the gamut of answers there, Fresh. I can see someone be like, yeah, you should have seen Houston this season. They crapped the bed 6 times. They had a lead going into the last 5 minutes and they blew the lead every single time. Or I could see the reverse of it saying, oh my gosh, you see Houston came back or Houston's blown out everyone in the Big 12. I'm going to live on the world of positivity because it's the summertime, glass half full type mentality. I'm going to think Houston. I am calling Houston a playoff team in the middle of July. Yes, Houston Cougars make the 12-team playoff.
Okay.
That's my bold prediction. Houston Cougars make the... Now, again, not saying they win the Big 12, because I think the Big 12 gets 2 teams this year.
Is your air conditioning working up there in the loft at their house stuff? You get hot, like Hughes Johnson kicking in. That's a bold claim in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Okay. All right. Folks, you heard it here. He has taken Houston as one of the 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff. That's over Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, Texas Tech, among others. Hey, you know what? Own it. You're on the Cougar band. You're on the Cougar bandwagon. And Andrea, that's his wife. It's the Houston Cougar bandwagon.
Yes.
So just we're not gonna start rumors or cause any issues there.
Well, I appreciate that. Fresh.
I mean, yeah, we're just gonna make sure we're gonna cover all bases there.
Listen, I think my wife at that level, but hey. All right. Yeah. Fresh, you got number 17. Go ahead.
Number 17, we're going to fight on with the USC Trojans. This team, they can recruit to USC. It is what it is. The biggest one thing I think is holding the team back is Lincoln Riley. He's held him back the past, ever since he arrived. He gets it. He's a good but not great kind of guy. The one thing I think is the difference, though, is that former TCU head coach Gary Patterson has been brought in as defensive coordinator. You have an adult in the room now. Someone who has done it at a high level, is a physical, gritty kind of coach, a real coach's coach, not this flashy Lincoln Riley nonsense. I think Gary's going to be a good sounding board for Lincoln. Someone who is not going to take his junk, but actually going to hold him accountable and not let him just run on his own. Keep his ego in check a little bit. And it needs to be fueled, but no, look, kid, you need to start playing more mentality approach. Team football and not just putting up video game stats with Caleb Williams. Speaking of stats for quarterback, Jaden Maeva coming back. Very impressive 2020. He showed a lot of flashes when he was at UNLV before that. 30 touchdowns last year with rushing and passing. How does he evolve from one year to the next? He has that same mentality. He can throw and he can run. How does Lincoln Riley get him to play more mature and bigger and more of an elite status from 25 to 26? Part of that is also going to be, how does the pieces around him evolve? You lose Mekhi Lemon, you lose Jacoby Lane. two very solid players. How can Chinook Hines in year 2 take the next step? 34 receptions, 561, 2 touchdowns as a freshman. That's got to be 70 for 1,010 this year. How quickly is transfer Terrell Anderson get involved at wide receiver? And how also does superstar, elite 5-star prospect, tight end / perimeter player, whatever you want to make him, Mark Bowman make as an impact? He was one of the most heralded recruits, not just tight ends, heralded recruits in college football. And it came down to a very, very competitive battle between USC and Georgia for him. He's now going to be playing immediately. How does he get involved and make an impact in the red zone on third down? Really, where does Lincoln Riley use him in that passing game and the offensive overall attack? Did you bring back your top 2 backs from last year? The offensive line got to step it up and play a little better. How does the team make plays? Defensive last year, the past 2 years, been it was improved last year. The year before it was trash. The year before that was trash. It made strides. How does Gary Patterson take it to the next level? Because the DC who was there had success at UCLA. 2 years at USC got them a little bit better year over year. Now he's off at Penn State. How does Gary Patterson build off that in the talent pool and take it to the next level? The reason why I'm very high on USC this year, that not only did they hit the transfer portal hard, not only are they returning some solid players, but they literally brought in the number 1 overall recruiting class this past year. Between transfers and freshman recruits, there is a bevy of talent. But we still have Lincoln Riley in charge. How does this team take the next step? I've seen them go to the big house against an average Sharon Moore Michigan team and lose because Lincoln Riley doesn't lose to. I've seen Lincoln Riley coach Oklahoma and blow double-digit leads to the Georgia Bulldogs in the Rose Bowl in a college football playoff on multiple occasions. I've seen him choke left and right. Lincoln Riley's got to get out of his own way because the talent is there and the talent's always been there. He just gets this team through. He overthinks it and screws it up. He had USC playing in a Pac-12 title game with Utah and fumbled it away. If Lincoln Riley can get out of his own way, the talent on this roster is good enough to, I'm not going to say win the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is very, very good, but really be a playoff, caliber football team. And they're sitting at number 17. So it's how they navigate the schedule, because it's not easy. And nothing really matters to them before September 26th. They should get 3-0, or they should get 4-0 at that point. September 26th through November 14th, this team's got to be locked in and ready to rock and roll. And there's no second chances. You got Oregon, Washington, at Penn State, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, bye week at Indiana. Fight on. I mean, you're going to be 4-0, but you start that stretch right there. You've got to be ready to make it happen. Yes, you're no longer playing Notre Dame, but your schedule, you got names on there. Will Penn State be improved? Will Wisconsin be improved? Probably. I'm not going to say they're going to be great, but they'll be improved. So that is a very tough gauntlet. Does this team win despite their coach? That is the biggest key, because the talent is there for US. And if they can put it up, they can be very, very special. The real question is, the team win despite their head coach? We'll find out. Lincoln Riley, get out of the way. Let the Trojans do their job.
Yeah. I mean, really, just Lincoln Riley only coach offense there.
Yeah, you know what? When you're on defense, just turn your face to the quarterback. Don't worry about what's happening behind you. Let Gary Patterson handle it and just move on.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. My number 17 team is going to surprise some people because I would say every other national person out there would have this team rated much higher. But I have my reasons. And I legitimately think that this may be almost too high for them. The Ole Miss Rebels are my number 17 team. And I think that might be me overrating them a little bit. Here's the reason why. Last year, Ole Miss had everything going for them. They're beating the brakes off of people. They were scoring video game level points on those things. Lane Kiffin was at the king of the mountain. And then all of a sudden, the Lane Train stuff goes down in a playoff run, and he goes to LSU. I talked earlier in the episode about events that galvanize a team, and that was the event that galvanized Ole Miss. It is that things are going great, and that girl breaks up with you, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make sure I compete in an amateur bodybuilding competition. And you go and you hit the gym hard, you work out, you get ready for it, and you go and you win a couple of rounds there, and you make it look competitive against the national champion. And then the off season hits. And then you're like, yeah, I showed Lane Kiffin, I showed everyone else how great we are. And then all of a sudden, time happens, and time heals all wounds. And I'll tell you, Ole Miss is going to probably be, I'm putting them on upset alert against Louisville, but most likely they're going to be 2-0. They're going to get jacked up for week 3 against LSU when he comes to Oxford. When your ex comes back, oh, I got to show off everything else here. The concern I have for LSU or for Ole Miss is week 4 at Florida. I'm calling it right now. Ole Miss goes into the swamp and loses. I think that screams letdown game. It screams letdown game. And then the minute one game is a letdown game, then you got to go into Austin. You luckily get Georgia in Oxford, but they're not going to win that.
Dogs. They own the dogs.
They do, but it was Lane Kiffin. By that time, I honestly think that Ole Miss might have some finger pointing going on. Hey, we are supposed to be better than this. Pete Golden, yeah, you steadied the ship when the waters were crazy rough, but are you able to guide the ship and like let it speed away from everyone? I don't think you're that type of coach. I really don't. I think you were there to be the steady hand. I don't think Pete Golden's long for Ole Miss football. I think Georgia's going to boat race Ole Miss in Oxford. I think they're going to go into Oklahoma and get boat raced. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be looking at an Ole Miss team that is maybe 8-4 at the end of this year. And people are going to be like, well, what happened? I thought Ole Miss was better than that. No, you saw the Ole Miss that was last year. That was a pissed off football team that got left at the altar in a playoff run, which is the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened. And what did they do? They got pissed off and they beat up on everyone. Trinidad Chambliss was a JUCO college quarterback for a reason, folks. Yes, he had a fantastic run, but he's going to return to the mean. He's going to be a slightly above average quarterback. He's going to be good. He's going to look great against the Charlotte 49ers. He'll look really good against Wolford and those fighting Terriers. But man, don't be shocked if people start going, oh, I wonder what happened to Ole Miss. Or man, Lane Kiffin left and the wheels fell off of that one. You're going to hear all those talking points in November. And really, it was a team that galvanized each other, and then they don't really have something to fight for anymore.
It will be interesting. You know, I can see that. You have in a life, we all get very emotional. And there's they call like dad strength or like mom strength, where you play out of your mind. But then, you know, you can only hold that strength for so long. Mm-hmm. You can only hold that adrenaline for so long, and you come back to it. Well, the team has talent. I think, you know, it's going to be, how can the expectation now? Ole Miss has always been a program that wins when there's very similar to Iowa State. You win when there's no expectation, but when there's expectations, they never really totally show up consistently. It will be quick. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of coach Pete Golding is and what kind of vibe and environment and culture they have in that locker room to keep that entire team focused. Are they there for him, or are they just there because they're living off of that run? And then when things go bad, it's an easy out. You brought up a good point. We'll see what happens there.
All right, Fresh. We're at number 16.
Number 16 for me. Probably see a trend. A lot of Big Ten teams. I interchange 16, 17, and 18 and 19 teams, but my 16 team is the Michigan Wolverines. The reason why is that they have a little more talent across the board than Iowa, but their coach is the best of the 4 right now.
Right.
Kyle Whittingham being there is going to be a factor where there might be a game where he makes a decision or two that's going to influence them and get a win where other coaches probably would have gotten a loss. Kyle Whittingham is at USC and Lincoln Riley was at Michigan. USC beats Michigan. That mentality. Mm-hmm. And that's where Michigan is 16. You're kind of like, well, Bryce Underwood's been mid. He's been underwhelming, but you're going to look at a Kyle Whittingham's entire coaching staff that followed him and guys from BYU and Utah who have been through it and have won with underachievers. They're going to be able to take the mentality and get there. You're going to have offensive linemen at Michigan. They're going to be physical. Justice Haynes should be healthy and be able to get back in that backfield and run a little bit, better after having a great year until they got hurt late. They're going to be who they are. No one thought Utah would be good, and Kyle Whittingham kept them forever. I'm recruiting with better players at Michigan with more NIL money, and I'm going to keep the same mentality. We're going to punch you in the nose. Even a bad Jerome Moore team, even underachieving Jerome Moore teams were competitive. One of them went to the shoe and beat Ohio State when they shouldn't have. Kyle Whittingham is going to be the decision and the deciding factor for this football team to be competitive. He's going to turn a bunch of guys who were resting on laurels of the Jim Harbaugh, national title game, the national championship team, and the NIL money, and turned them into their own brand of physical football and blue collar. Yes, there's another scandal hanging over the program. Yes, Ward Manuel should probably resign and stop the embarrassment. But Kyle Whittingham is going to bring some peace and some stability to that athletic department and that entire school. The recruiting class, very good. I got a feeling a lot of them are going to play early. But this Michigan Wolverines, there's a lot of pride there, and they're going to step up and play. The schedule is actually broken up nicely. It's only one time they actually have a back-to-back tough opponents, and it's the middle of the year. You get Oklahoma on September 12th. Last year, Bryce Underwood looked like a freshman quarterback in Norman. How does he respond? September 26th, you host the Hawkeyes. You get Penn State and Indiana back-to-back in mid-October. You travel to Oregon November 14th, and you got Ohio State in November 28th. At worst, even with that schedule, that could be tough. You're 6-6. At best, you can be 9-3. But the talent of this football team and Kyle Whittingham, there might be games that they should lose that they're going to find ways to win. And I have my faith in Kyle Whittingham. I'm not going to doubt him. I doubted him a few years ago, and Utah was great. So I'm putting my faith in Kyle Whittingham to take this Michigan football program and turn boys into men and to get them to play the potential, get Bryce Underwood to be more comfortable. The skills are there. But I think they put a lot of pressure on him last year to be something that he wasn't. If they have the running game, he played better. They need someone to actually coach him, and Sharon Moore and that entire staff were not the guys to coach him and develop him. Kyle Whittingham and his entire staff will turn him into a very serviceable quarterback and use his skills when needed. If Haynes gets healthy, that offensive line, they'll put it together. They develop tight ends. They'll find some receivers. They will be good, and that defense will play. The Wolverines will not be winning the national championship in 2026, but they will be much more improved and maybe better than their record says they are because of the way they play on the field. It pays me to say it, but Michigan is my number 16 team in the country.
Well, Fresh, I won't go too far into the Wolverines. I think you meant Jordan Marshall, not Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes is down at Georgia Tech. He transferred this past year. You're good.
Marshall's also a good player.
Yeah.
Haynes getting out.
What?
My bad. Apologies.
No, you're all good. One kid to watch, though, and I won't go into my full Wolverines preview because I'll do that at a later date because I actually have them a little bit higher than 16. Two names I'm going to give you. Transfer Jamie French from Mandarin High School here in Jacksonville. Got to see him with my own two eyes. Dude was legit in person. And Savion Hittner. I'm impressed. Oh my gosh, is he good? He scares the living bejesus out of me. I'm with you. Kyle Whittingham is the best. If, as an Ohio State fan, I'm telling you, Sharon Moore was the best thing that happened for the Buckeyes. He torched that program, messed it up. Not to the level of Rich Rod, but close. And I think the worst thing that could happen is them hiring someone like Kyle Whittingham. Though my only hope saving grace is that it's so late into Kyle Whittingham's career that he's only there for 5 or 6 years. That is my only hope for the Wolverines as an Ohio State fan, because I have that much respect for him.
And, I will apologize if he's coming down to Georgia Tech. I completely missed that one. But Marshall was a great number 2 back last year. And him and Hittner, they're both going to play early. But that's who Whittingham wants to be. He's going to be blue collar, run the football. And just be careful when you spell a hit. Make sure you don't spell the other guy's name.
Yeah. There's no L.
There's no L. Hopefully there's a lot of L's, though, if you're a Ohio State fan for them. But, it's just there's talent in the backfield, and that's going to help bring stability to Underwood and let him be a better overall quarterback and not just a thrower of the football.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. My number 16 team was your number 18 team. It is the Washington Huskies. I am super curious when you're going into Washington, what does Jedd Fisch do in this situation? So you have Washington that is an upper tier. I don't want to say maybe tier 1, but probably tier 2, very high tier 3 program in the Big Ten. You got a really fun, entertaining cornerback in Desmond Williams. You have some very interesting running backs. You have some very interesting wide receivers. Your offensive line is elder statesman, except for maybe true freshman Cody Green, who might start over there. Intrigued to see if he winds up starting for them. Highly rated left tackle out of high school here, coming out of Mater D. I just want to see if Jedd Fisch can say, I don't think they're ever going to be in the same category as Ohio State and Oregon, but can they be in the same category as Indiana? I say Indiana in that second tier category because they got to consistently win. They won national title. That's great. Amazing job out of Indiana. I need to see you do it again. I need to see you be competitive with Josh Hoover. But can Washington be in that next tier? And consistently. It's like Washington will pop a year. They made the national title game, won a playoff game against Texas a couple years ago, and then they kind of fall back to earth. They pop, fall back down to earth. I need to see some consistent staying power out of the Huskies for me to feel really, really good about this football team. It's kind of the same thing we saw with Jedd Fisch when he was at Arizona. We saw him pop Arizona a year, and then the next year they kind of fell back down to earth. I'm going to really be watching. Washington, can you go in to LA and win the first Saturday in October against USC? That's going to tell us a lot about this team because you get Iowa, Iowa's going to be traveling into Seattle on a Friday night. It's a short week for the Hawkeyes there. That's a difficult thing for 19 and 20-year-olds to do. Again, you get Penn State there, you get Indiana in Washington. This has got the schedule's manageable enough to be an 8-4, 9-3 win football team. But is there a way you can get to 10-2? Can you upset Indiana? Can you go into Eugene and win? Can you go into LA and win? And do you stub your toe along the way? Do you go into Lincoln, Nebraska and just not be ready to play and not get off the bus on Halloween? Like, what is this Washington team? What are we going to say about them? Because people forget Desmond Williams almost transferred out of there. And he had already signed his NIL deal, and it went to a judge. It's one of the few times that the judge ruled against the player, and he wound up saying you have to honor your NIL deal. Like, is he going to be motivated to be there in Washington? There's a lot of questions with this Huskies team. I'm going to, again, lean on the side of positivity and say that this Washington team is going to create some noise. I see them at 9-3. They're going to have one win this year that we're going to go, hey, wow, fresh. Did you see what Washington did last night? Did you see who they beat? Like, great job out of them. Desmond Williams threw 4 touchdowns, completely balled out. And then we're going to have another Sunday morning show where we go, Washington, you're a giant disappointment. What are you doing? Like, you choked. Yeah. I don't know. I want to believe in Washington. I just got to see like that year in and year out consistency. That's the only thing that's missing from the Washington Huskies, man. Because if they do, you're right. They got talent galore up there in Seattle. So,
you bring up the Desmond, Williams thing. It would heed you good advice to play at your highest level because the NFL scouts and the teams are watching. If they think that you're just going to have this mentality of I'm good enough, I'm just going to stay through, I got my paycheck, and I'll just get to the draft, and then I'll be okay, who cares? They're going to see someone who quits on his teammates. They're going to see someone who's selfish. You go out there and you play everything, you can make yourself more money, and you can show that you truly care about winning and being the best you possibly can be. Do not just think you have a paycheck in hand and you're just going to skate through it. Go out there and show that you're actually better than what that is. You're a good teammate and you're actually a legit quarterback because Brandon Sorsby should be a sign of caution to anyone out there. Yes, it is gambling. That's a completely different scenario, but you thought you were bigger than what the biggest conglomerate of sport is in the world. And that's the NFL. You can talk soccer all you want. The NFL, it is the one league that will scope outside of the World Cup, the one league that will stand on its own. And you thought you were bigger than that. You thought you could do what you did and they would accept it with open arms, and you got proven wrong. Desmond Williams, go out there and play your heart out and give everything you have for Washington, because if you do, you're going to impress a lot of people in the front offices and make yourself more money than you have right now.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting time here, Fresh. All right, let's get to our composite here, folks. You're going to notice that some of these teams are different than what we had. Our composite top 25 team, at number 20, it was the Houston Cougars. 19 is the SMU Mustangs. 18 is the Penn State Nittany Lions, meaning one of us had Penn State really high, one of us had them kind of low. The Washington Huskies were number 17 there. Number 16 is the USC Trojans. And that's it. That's That's all we need to do. 20 through 16, right? I
We'll
almost
tease you
gave
for
15 away.
when you come back next time.
Yeah, you
Almost
got to
gave it
come
away.
back.
You got to have to come back to the next episode of that one.
Yeah, I almost said it. I was like, and we're at this point because I'm looking here on my spreadsheet as well. Folks, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hitting the notification bell, because guess what? We are just a few weeks away from the college football season. I can't wait for it. It is going to be here before you know it. Make sure you check out the Spinnable Sports YouTube channel. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Make sure you engage with us on social media, on the X. We'll be a little more active. It's kind of that dead period in sports right now. We aren't as engaged as much, but I can't wait to get back out there. And I usually am on a Wednesday night space. So if you want to bring your college football questions to that Wednesday night space, I'm usually there.
Hit the space. I'm sure stuff we'll put it out there through the Irrational Confidence Podcast, Twitter. Follow along. Good people, great conversation. Have a good time with that. I believe it's every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
Yes, it is. 9 p.m. It's the football foreplay. It's a couple of friends who put it on, but I'm on there.
Cool. So everybody else, if you want a live engagement, hit that up. But other than that, check us out at IR Confidence Pod, the Irrational Confidence Podcast on Twitter/X, at Spinnable Sports on Twitter/X, at Power Alley Pod if you want some baseball fix on Twitter/X. You can also follow us each individually. Spinnable Sports YouTube channel where all the magic happens. It's for all of our producers, Drew. And until next time, we'll bring you number 15 through number 11 our preseason top 25 as we count down all the way to their top 25, the top number 1 team in the country heading into the 2026 season. And then from there, it's off and running for preseason Irrational Confidence team and overall playoff predictions. And we'll go from there. But until next time, hit us up, talk to us on social, yell at us through the YouTube channels. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.